So here's a thought. What if our cities could actually hear a cry for help, but couldn't listen in on our private conversations? What if they could detect real danger in a split second without ever having to watch us? Well, that's the big promise behind a new idea we're diving into today called Urban Sentinel. For years, this has felt like the basic trade-off of living in a modern city. It's this constant push and pull, right? Of course, we want instant help when there's an emergency, but how much of our personal privacy are we really willing to give up to get it? Does a faster 911 response have to mean a microphone on every street corner recording everything? And let's be real, right now, the options feel pretty black and white. On one hand, you've got total surveillance. That means microphones everywhere, constantly streaming audio to some cloud server to be analyzed. All our conversations, our daily chatter, it's all stored somewhere. And on the other hand, you have total privacy, which means we rely completely on a person to see something, pick up a phone, and call it in. And we all know that can take precious minutes that people just don't have. But what if that whole trade-off is just a false choice? What if there's a third way? This is exactly where Urban Sentinel comes into the picture. And you should think of it less as a product and more as a whole new way of thinking about safety. It's a privacy-first safety net for our cities. Okay, so here's the core promise, and honestly, it's a huge one. This is a decentralized system. That means there's no single big central brain collecting everybody's data. Instead, you have these small, independent devices, we call them edge devices, that do all the processing right there on the street corner. And the most important part, I'm going to say it again, absolutely zero private data, no conversations, no background noise, nothing ever gets sent to the cloud. Ever. So you're probably asking, how can something listen for trouble without, listening to you? It sounds a little like magic, but it's not. To really get it, let's follow the journey of a single sound, from the moment it happens on the street all the way to a dispatcher's screen. The whole system is built on this really smart 3-layer architecture. First up, you've got the edge layer. Those are the devices out on the street. Then there's an aggregation layer, which is kind of like the system's brain that helps it get smarter. And finally, the presentation layer, which is the dashboard that emergency services actually see. This structure is absolutely key to how it all works while protecting privacy. I want you to think of the device on the edge layer like a super disciplined security guard standing on a street corner. It hears everything, but its only job is to immediately forget anything that isn't a clear sign of trouble. So it listens in this tiny 2-second loop. An AI model analyzes that little snippet for a specific distress signal. And then, this part is so crucial, it forgets. The raw audio is instantly wiped. It never leaves the device. Only if it's more than 60% sure it heard something like a gunshot or a fall does it send a tiny encrypted alert with just the bare essentials, location, time, and what kind of sound it was. Now what about that middle layer, the aggregation layer? Well, it never sees the alerts, it never hears any audio. Its only job is to help all those little AI models out on the street get more and more accurate over time. It gets these tiny anonymous updates, not the sounds themselves, but the mathematical patterns the local AI has learned. This makes the whole network smarter without ever collecting a single byte of personal data. And what's so interesting here is that this isn't science fiction. It's all built on powerful, open-source tools that are available right now. You can see them here. You've got Python and PyTorch doing the heavy lifting for the AI on the edge. Then there's this framework called Flower, which is really the magic that makes all that privacy-preserving learning possible. Fast API and WebSockets handle the super fast messaging, and it's all presented on a modern React front-end for the dispatcher. Okay, so now let's get into the absolute secret sauce that makes this entire privacy-first approach work. It's a technology called federated learning, and believe me, it is a complete game changer for AI. So what is federated learning? Well, it pretty much flips the entire traditional AI model completely upside down. See, instead of collecting all of our data and sending it to a central server to be analyzed, this approach sends the AI model out to the data, wherever it happens to be. This slide is the perfect way to see the difference. With old-school centralized AI, you're basically sending all your secret ingredients, your private data, to one central kitchen to be cooked up. But with federated learning, the AI model, who we can call the head chef, sends an improved recipe out to each local kitchen. The device then learns from its own local ingredients and only sends the recipe adjustments, the lessons learned, back to the head chef. The raw ingredients, they never ever leave your kitchen. All right, so we've covered the theory, which is really cool. But what does this all actually look like for the person on the other end, the emergency dispatcher who has to act on this information? Let's walk through a quick end-to-end test and see it in action. So for this test, one of the nodes out there on the network is going to simulate detecting the sound of a person falling, followed by a voice in distress. Immediately, the local AI model on that device analyzes the sound signature, and boom, it classifies it as a distressed voice/fall with 82% confidence. That's way over the 60% threshold we talked about, so an alert is triggered instantly. And that tiny encrypted little packet of data, remember just metadata, no audio, travels from that edge node straight to the command center dashboard with pretty much zero latency. We are talking milliseconds, and in an emergency, that kind of speed is absolutely everything. And here it is. This is the final result. This is what the dispatcher sees, exactly what they need and nothing they don't. A pulsing marker on a map, the precise location, the type of emergency, and how sure the AI is. But what they never see is just as important, maybe even more so. No audio, no video, no names, no personal information at all. It is pure, actionable intelligence with zero personally identifiable information. You know, when you take a step back and think about it, a system like Urban Sentinel is really more than just a single tool. It kind of points toward a different kind of future. One where our technology can actually be helpful without being intrusive, where our cities can get smarter without having to become surveillance states. This whole idea suggests that the smartest cities of the future might not be the ones that watch the most, but the ones that have learned how to listen the best, how to listen for what's truly important while respecting everyone's privacy. And it just begs the question, right? What other parts of our lives could be made better by technology that learns about the world instead of just watching it?